Welcome back to another episode of the Construction Hall of Fame podcast. Super excited for today's episode. We're joined by Adrian Russell, who's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director at Shiel Sexton. And just to kick things off, I want to say thanks for joining us today, Adrian.
Hey, thank you so much, Matt. Happy to be on. Thank you for the invitation. Excited to get into this conversation.
Yes, sir. All right, well, let's do it. Just to kick off, just like every episode, I'd like to help the audience get some context about who you are and what your background looks like in terms of how you got to where you're at today. So would you mind just sharing the story of how you got started in your career and how that led to where you're at today?
Yes, absolutely. Got started into my career, honestly, by falling in love with construction, and I would say building more so. As a kid, coming up on the inner city of Indianapolis in a large household, 7 brothers and sisters, including my 2 parents, a household of 10 in poverty, where, the home in which we rented, things were always going bad. Things were always going out, whether it be, leaking ceiling and roofs, bad plumbing, electrical sockets not working, light switches, you name it. So at an early age, I had the opportunity to learn how to use my hands, really as a matter of problem solving and survival. I fell in love with building, using my hands, and that naturally ushered me into construction in my collegiate years. Went to Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, pursued a building construction management degree. Have now been in the industry now for 12 years, 10 of which I actually managed commercial construction projects. As a project manager, I traveled the country, experienced a lot of incredible things in my career. Had a lot of failures in my career as well, especially the first half of my career, all of which led me to my position now here in Indianapolis, working for Shiel Sexton, which we are a large general contractor in the state of Indiana, and I lead the diversity efforts as well as the diverse procurement efforts, and love every day.
That's phenomenal. It's such an important job, role, career that you have in the construction industry, because here's the truth. There are some, companies out there who do a phenomenal job of providing an inclusive culture and really putting a focus on DE&I. And there's others I've talked to who are kind of in the groupthink mentality. They're like, we've always done it this way. This is how we've done it. And they're not as tolerant of people, whether it be of different backgrounds or different skill sets, experience levels. And it's just so powerful to see people like in organizations like yours who are putting a very direct focus on this. Because at the end of the day, not only does it provide a better experience for people in the construction industry, but it also helps solve problems in the construction industry, like the workforce shortage. If we can promote more people from diverse backgrounds to find positive, happy, successful careers in construction, it's going to do so much good for people and also for the industry as a whole. So cheers to what you're doing and the career you've built up to today. And I just wanted to give the audience maybe some context as to what about your background led you to want to get into the DE&I sector of construction, and how has that really played out throughout your career?
Great question, Matt. Going back to my college days, I think that myself, as well as all the other individuals in my collegiate class, where we had aspirations to go into our construction careers, and you're dreaming of building skyscrapers. I was actually on Lucas Oil Stadium, which is downtown Indianapolis. We hosted the Super Bowl back in the early 2000s, and I was on that project when it was being built. I was actually an intern in high school going into college, had an opportunity to experience that, and I fell in love with just major, massive projects. So, in the college classroom, I'm dreaming of just an incredible career, building things on a skyscraper and, innovating the industry as far as being on every major ticket project. Funny thing is, actually, my first project out of school was on a major hospital downtown Indianapolis. It was almost a $1 billion project. I was galvanized, excited, couldn't wait. And to be honest with you, every day felt like I was going through hell. I mean, it was just a horrible experience. No way around it. Getting out to a massive project, hundreds of people on that project, no one that I could relate to, limited interactions that I felt that were actually welcoming. I'll be honest with you, just a struggle every single day. And honestly, from my dream in the college classroom to the reality that I walked into, it didn't take long for me to start to wonder if I made a huge mistake as far as my career choice. And I think that really set the tone for the first probably 5 or 6 years of my career where, I bounced from place to place, position to position, went from general contractor down to a subcontractor, back to a couple of general contractors, really lacking mentorship, lacking direction, and really lacking a place in the industry. And all of that really spearheaded the passion that I feel now, which is fighting for opportunities, fighting for equity, inclusion, and a place of belonging for individuals that are historically and generationally underrepresented in our industry.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's great to see that you come from such a place of passion because you've gone through it. You've had experiences where, you were in a non-inclusive environment, it sounds like, for many respects. And to kind of dive a little bit deeper on that, what did it feel like to be in a non-inclusive environment? What are some examples that people can look out for to take it a step further? Because, some people might get in the industry and they might not know what they don't know. They might just think, hey, this is how it's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, you realize that that's just not the truth. It's not how it's supposed to be. And you've been a part of some really inclusive cultures as well. So how did you know you were in a culture that was not inclusive? And what did it feel like? What are some examples of interactions that led you to come to that conclusion?
Man, I mean, once again, another great question. That's a heavy question, to be honest with you. What it felt like, I mean, I'll say this, that, my entire life, I've never struggled with, I'll say, getting along in environments where maybe individuals that I could relate to, maybe individuals that looked like me, where there weren't many of them. I've had those experiences before. However, going into a professional workplace in an industry and an environment such as construction is altogether different than so many other industries. I'll say that going into that environment, number one, it was just taxing every day, things not really understanding when an individual is speaking to you and when they make a suggestion, being able to read in between the lines or understand what they're saying that they didn't actually say, almost things that, that you almost feel as if, mind games in a sense. I mean, when you're in an environment that it's not inclusive and you can feel that it's not inclusive, all the way from going into, maybe a company lunch or, a job site lunch where, pizza is brought in or what have you. And you might be knee deep in a task. No one comes and gets you and tells you that, there was pizza delivered. So when you finally get down to the bigger group, not only are they wrapping things up, there's no pizza left. And I don't want to sound like a brat that didn't get any pizza, but I'm just saying that those experiences, they're real. You hear about these things all the time, and they're eye openers as well, where, maybe it's not anything done overt or directly, but the fact of the matter is they are real experiences, and they do have a residual effect, a lasting effect that absolutely impacts your performance, impacts your psyche, really impacts your outlook and moving forward.
It's sometimes the things that seem small, first of all, they're not small to some people. And second of all, they can add up over a period of time. And if you keep getting hit with these small, quote unquote, small events that are big to some people, like you said, it can actually sounds like really wear on you, and it could just make you not want to be a part of something where you're busting your ass every day. You're going to work and you're giving it your all. But at the end of the day, it sounds like that lack of appreciation and the lack of inclusion in these day-to-day moments can really add up to something that just makes you not want to be a part of the culture and not want to give so much effort and so much blood, sweat, and tears to a team who just in the back end just doesn't appreciate you. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I'll never forget, on that first employer of mine and on that first project, I'll never forget, receiving a scathing review. And, I've grown up in sports. So, I look at things as a challenge, and I believe in rising to the occasion in the face of adversity. I believe in that. I mean, that's how, I've made it. My father made it. My father's father. I mean, that's how we've made it to where we've gotten to in this life. That being said, after receiving that scathing review, I made it a point to do everything that I could to try to attack those, those criticisms, whether constructive or unconstructive. I wanted to make sure that I rose to the occasion. And in the subsequent weeks and months, I believe in large part I did, but I'll never forget when, my report, the individual that I reported to came to the job site one day We sat down one-on-one. I remember, my stomach felt so sick. I was so nervous. It's your first job. You're out of school. You're just hoping to God that you don't lose your job. You're terrified. And I'll never forget the days of just feeling terrified. If someone called me and it was from the office, or the supervisor called me, every moment feeling terrified. And I remember he sat there, he looked at me, he told me, "Hey, you look uptight, relax." And he actually told me that, I've done a good job for the most part of responding to the challenge and, making sure that I was, being a little more deliberate and getting my job done in the manner that was outlined. But one thing that he presented to me, and I'll never forget this point, Matt, he looked at me and he said, "I want to know, are you having fun?" I didn't know how to answer the question because, to be honest with you, heck no, I wasn't having fun. Nothing about it was fun. And the fact that it didn't appear as if I was enjoying myself and having fun was actually a huge cause of concern, according to this individual, in moving forward. I will never forget that. These years later, I look back on that experience and I realize certain individuals in certain environments, they're not so lucky to get to go to work and have fun, if you understand what I'm really saying.
It's almost like, I think the saying is something along the lines of, a flower can't grow out of concrete, right? Like if someone has so much potential and they're in the wrong environment with the wrong support, the wrong team around them, it's hard for them to blossom, when in reality they have so much potential that's just really being untapped or unrealized because they don't have the right people around them to actually pour into them, help them grow and develop and mentor their career success.
For sure. That's a great way of putting it.
What sports did you play in your background?
Primarily football. Grew up absolutely in love with the game. Very passionate about it from my childhood. Studied all the stats, all the great players. Grew up an Indianapolis Colts fan, Peyton Manning. Definitely. Played football through my childhood all the way through high school varsity football. So super committed to the game as a kid.
What position did you play?
So I actually played wing. And in high school, so that wing, it was almost a hybrid position at that time where, I was too short to actually be a tight end, but I was an incredible blocker. So, I got to block and play the role of a tight end, but then also play in the backfield as well. So pretty cool position that was somewhat of a new position as far as the offense that my high school offense ran. So it was pretty cool. Loved every day.
Key, you got to be shifty. It's a position where you're going to maybe be taking the ball on a sweep every now and then. You might be going long every now and then. You really don't know exactly what might come up. But it's interesting. I love talking to people with an athletic background. Maybe I'm biased because I played college sports myself and our co-founder did too. But I just found people who come from an athletic background, generally speaking, have the ability to take criticism from a different perspective. It's more of like a growth perspective, and they might come with a chip on their shoulder, but they definitely say, "Hey, I'm here to rise to the challenge. I want to be able to perform, to be able to support my team." Like you just as well. I played baseball, you played football, both team sports. So it's like, yes, you want personal development, but at the same time, you want the greater good for your team because you want your team to win. So I just think that background is so interesting how it seems like for you, it's actually translated into your career.
Absolutely. So when I'm going and speaking with, young people, students that are pursuing construction, that are interested in construction, especially those that have athletic backgrounds, I'm always telling them one thing about construction: once you get into a place in which you fit, once you find that right culture fit, you'll realize so much of this industry, it is just like the days of, sports, athletics. For me, it was football, where, it's a family environment. It's a family culture where in order to make it, in order to succeed, you have to learn how to commit to the greater good for the team, commit to the team's goals. And by the team, meeting their goals, that's how you're able to meet your individual goals. So much of it, I do draw from my athletic background in the days of football. And I still, draw from those lessons, and I apply the lessons and principles learned in that, and I apply them to my career. So, you're absolutely right.
And I think football is an interesting one too, because I played a little bit of football. Like my freshman year of high school, I played at a school called Sarah High School, where The coaching staff, they were phenomenal, but they definitely, they weren't afraid to let you have it when the time came. So that was my experience with football. Baseball coaches were a little more methodical, strategic, not as much like raising their voice.
Right.
And so for me, I think in football, it just brings it could breed such a thick skin when you're used to taking a lashing from your coaches, and you're like, you can't disrespect them. You're not going to go back and yell back at your coach. You need to take it on the chin. You need to move forward, and you need to become a better version of yourself to support the team and yourself, your own success, right? So I think it's interesting how that parallels to the beginning of your career. And you hear about the beginning of so many young people's career. It's like when you first get on the job site, you're getting, taking lashings from the team, you're maybe getting a little bit of a rough perspective from the leadership or the people who you're working with as direct reports because you don't understand things, you're new to things. But at the same time, it goes to show there's different leadership styles out there. There's those that can make people feel welcome, that you want to support them. And there's also those that are just, people don't even want to hear from you. There's a line. If your football coach is yelling at you 24/7, they have nothing good to say, then you don't want to play for the coach either at the end of the day. That's probably the reality for many people. So, I mean, did you find there was a parallel there in how you were able to sort of like take it on the chin in the beginning and not just quit your job when people were being tough on you?
Absolutely. I mean, football, it instilled discipline more than anything. It instilled discipline, working through summer conditioning and the training just to get ready for a season. I mean, just putting your body through just pain and just suffering through it, hot summer days, going through just the grueling conditioning, as well as you said, the tongue lashings from the coaching and hearing things that you don't want to hear and being challenged in ways that you don't always want to be challenged. More than anything, it instilled discipline, and drawing from that discipline has benefited my career, as well as many others that have went off the athletic field, particularly, the sport of football, and have applied those things to their careers in construction. I mean, it pays dividends for sure.
It's so much character building as well. I can still remember Coach Hardy yelling, "Gorgolinski, get up!" And I could hear him from a mile away. He was hilarious. And actually, to this day, I still keep in touch with Coach Hardy. He's just such a phenomenal guy. And it's just like, it breeds character. The times that were the most challenging, when we had to do full football fields of burpees, get-ups, sprints, those are the times I look back and I'm like, I pushed myself to points where I didn't think I was going to be able to go to. And that just goes to show, I think a lot of the time people don't know what they're capable of until they have a leader who brings the best out of them or helps them take it to another level.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, for me, it was Coach Mickens and Russell. I mean, just had a incredible robotic voice. He actually played in the NFL, but I think about that and it makes me laugh to this day. But you draw from that, you really do.
Most definitely. So let's shift into a more positive light, right? Like, you had a couple of experiences in the beginning that weren't as inclusive, that they really, I mean, from our talk last time when we spoke, it's like you were questioning your career in the construction industry, questioning whether you made the right choice. But fast forward to today, you told me that construction's changed your life, and you are now spreading a message of how it can change other people's lives. So what did it feel like going from a culture that was not inclusive to going to a culture that actually changed the paradigm for you and allowed you to have so much passion for this industry?
Great thing about it, if you see anything through long enough, hopefully you get to the point to where a story that's going bad turns around. And for me, I saw my career turn around about that midway point. I've been in the industry now for 12 years. So about that 6-year mark, I actually had just lost a job, and I made it a point then, man, I kid you not. I said, I'm done with this industry. And I thought I'm going to do what I did to get into it, which was I was just going to paint and start to, do things that I could, I would say dictate my own terms in a sense. So I spent almost a year out of the industry, and I got a call one day. It was from an individual that he actually had a relationship with the owner of a company. I didn't even know who this individual was. And I asked, was it a headhunter? He said, no, he actually came across, my profile and some mentoring initiatives that I had been involved with, because I've always been involved in, community service and mentoring youth and individuals. And he said, I just want to introduce you to, this gentleman. It's a great small family company. I believe that you would benefit from meeting him. Somewhat against my will, I, ran it past a couple of close friends. They said, hey, it won't hurt to do it. And I was so traumatized from my past experiences. I was just skeptical across the board, Matt. actually went to the interview, I had to kind of admit deep down inside that, it's something about just the conversation and the dialogue in which we shared that it resonated with me. Found myself going back to a second interview. And before you know it, I accepted the position. Best decision I've ever made, hands down, where, that individual is a man that, I still hold as a mentor to this day. He actually would, bring me into his office and teach me things one-on-one. He had a career as a structural engineer prior to starting his construction company. And I'll say, man, just thinking back on the way that he poured into me and, taught me how to negotiate, how to understand your position in negotiation, how to, write scopes, review scopes, knowing the right questions to ask. Really taking that time to pour into me absolutely has impacted me. That was the change in my career. That's where things turned around. Spent 5 years at that company. I really found myself. I found my footing. The rest is history. And I'll forever be in that individual's debt. Pete Mattingly of Matcon General Contractors absolutely changed my career. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
Shout out to the Petes of the world. Most definitely.
Sure.
Here's the thing. I have two key takeaways from what you just said. Number one was I actually recorded a podcast yesterday with Aaron Witt. He's the CEO of a company called Build Wit. For anyone who isn't familiar, they're a marketing company specifically focusing on training, development, branding for the dirt world. So, excavation contractors, people who work in the dirt world space, right? Underground utilities, all that good stuff. And basically what he shared was he's been able to put together a training vault of over 1,000 videos that actually help train people on different aspects of the construction industry, right? And so one takeaway is the fact that you were able to actually receive training and hands-on training and mentorship. And I think whether companies invest in a one-to-one setting, which is, from what I understand, by far the most impactful in my career, one-to-one training has been by far the most impactful. And then companies who can combine that with actually providing different layers of training for people who want to learn in different ways. That's a huge takeaway I think leaders should actually take from this podcast is putting in the one-to-one time to mentor, train, develop, and also providing resources for people who want to continue to grow within their career. If you provide people who are hungry the resources to grow and who want to grow, they will take to it and they will continue to push forward and develop. And then the second thing is I actually had someone who I had on the podcast named Jeremy Gibson, who's a business unit director at BN Builders. And he just made such an emphasis on the importance of actually taking the time for one-to-one mentorship and training and how nothing can replace that. Like, for example, he would go to college fairs to develop one-to-one relationships with students to make the impact on just one person who can then maybe tell other people or maybe then be the person who joins their company, or being people in the company who are young or who are in maybe leadership positions that are lower than Jeremy. Taking that one-to-one time, he said, has been invaluable. And it sounds like that's been a similar thread for you from the mentors who have impacted you most, is that people who would actually take the time to invest in you and not treat you like a number, but actually take the time to invest in your development and your success.
Man, I'll be honest, I needed to hear that. There's a young man, I say kid, but he's a young man, high school student. I had an opportunity to, keynote a large construction industry outreach event, expo here in Indiana about a month ago. And, of all the hundreds of kids that I engage with, there's one particular young man. He actually consistently reached out to me on social media following that event. So we actually got on a Zoom call a couple of weeks back. Man, I thought we would maybe be on the call for about 5-10 minutes at the most. We were on the call for about an hour and 30 minutes. And for him to be a high school student and, him sharing some of his experiences, and you and I talked about, the athletic background and the things that athletics teaches, but the healthy outlook that he had on his life in spite of certain challenges that he's went through. And even the fact that him seeing the construction industry as an outlet and how he wanted to get into the industry and impact change through some of his own experiences. Man, I just fell in love with the kid, to be honest with you, man. And I said I needed to hear that because something about that one-on-one, it is pure. And I'm just convinced now that, I'm going to reach out to him. I want to go and meet him. He's about an hour away from where I live. And I really want to sit down with him and get his resume together and really help him get into this industry. Because as I said, that call, I have such a high respect for him. And I said, it does not feel like I'm speaking to a junior in high school. So, I can attest, absolutely.
It's huge. And also, if you think about it, diversity, equity, and inclusion will not only help solve workforce problems, help people feel more accepted, but at the end of the day, let's be honest, there's a big suicide problem in the construction industry. It's a big problem. And if we can create more inclusive environments that help people feel like for example, what that mentor did for, or not a mentor, I don't know if that's the right term, but in your first position, when you had the guy sit down with you on the job site, and he said, in some respect, how are you feeling? Are you actually having fun? Like, tell me about your mental health today. I had someone on the podcast in the past, and he had mentioned, his name was Leandris Whedon. And he had mentioned something he does intentionally to check in with people is ask them, how's your mental health today? And if leaders would put more of a focus on creating an inclusive environment, checking in on more than how a job is coming with their team, I think that would help push the industry so far if it was more of a collective effort versus a couple people doing it here and there.
Well said. Absolutely. Mental health, let's be honest. It's something that I think so many of us have, overlooked. We know that in some ways it's a somewhat of a taboo subject, especially in certain communities, but it is real and it's something that impacts all of us. And even I myself, I have to be more mindful of it. So, amen to that.
Yeah. I'd like to dive in a little more as to what the diversity, equity, and inclusion shows up like at Shiel Sexton, and maybe what are some initiatives or strategies that your team uses to continue, bettering the DE&I within the company.
One, we're just committed to change, honestly. We understand and recognize that in this industry, not just in the state of Indiana, but really, I would say in the United States of America, so much has been, done a certain way as far as the industry. Things have always been the way that they are, if you understand what I'm saying. As far as, when you think of diversity, when you think of equity, inclusion, and belonging, the construction industry is not the first thing that comes to most people's minds. That being said, we understand that, we're faced with the challenge. We're tasked with the challenge of, creating, equitable paths for all people from all backgrounds, but we're up to the task. That being said, one cool thing that we're doing, and I'm able to lead this effort, thankfully, is, we are really working, learning our community and getting to know the people that make up our community. The minority-owned businesses, the woman-owned businesses, the disadvantaged businesses, veteran-owned businesses, etc. We are really getting to know those folks and getting to know them, learning the makeup of their businesses, being able to identify their strengths and their weaknesses, and hoping bridging the gap so that we can provide avenues to get them on projects, hopefully Shiel Sexton projects, but not always Shiel Sexton projects. We're committed to, working to develop paths, bridge pathways for them as far as getting them up to speed so that they can hopefully grow their businesses successfully into the future. We're working through various mentor-protege relationships. We're helping them find people. We're all fighting for people, but there's a couple of contractors in which we're mentoring, and we actually help them find people that can do a great job for them so that they can grow into the future. So we have many external community commitments, and they're benefiting us because, let's be honest, this is a people business, and your reputation as a contractor within the greater community, that's everything. And in saying that, that also bleeds as far as the internal, where, we really are working to better understand our underrepresented employee base, understanding, what are their needs, what are their wants, and what are the barriers in which they're facing or that threaten, let's just say that threaten their outlook or that threaten their career potential. And we're working with them collaboratively to where we're identifying those things, we're finding them the right mentors, and then we're also really developing pathways in which that they can follow, intentional, deliberate pathways so that they can progress through their career and hopefully, enjoy a 15, 20, 30-year career within Shiel Sexton. I'm super grateful to be a part of this, grateful to have buy-in from the leadership, and then grateful that we're seeing the fruits of our labor really manifest as we move forward.
Phenomenal. So to get a little more tactical with it, how does that actually show up in the company? Like, for example, are you using different types of anonymous surveys or maybe not anonymous surveys? Are you doing one-to-one meetings to check in with people to really see where they're at? What have you found to be most effective for ensuring that people feel supported and you can take good care of them?
One-to-one meetings are everything. When I came into this position, it was a new position. Shiel Sexton, was the first large general contractor within the state of Indiana, headquartered within the state of Indiana, to actually hire a full-time, diversity head. We understood what we were challenged with. It was something that we were embarking upon anew, meaning that it hadn't been done before. There was no guide or handbook to follow. In many ways, we were setting a precedent. Coming into the firm, one thing that has paid me dividends immensely was committing to just one-on-one interactions, constantly going through, sending emails to those, have a good day, hope everything's going well. Are you having any issues? Just checking in on people. And once you open that door, folks will let you know. They'll ask, hey, can you have a little time? Could I come in and could we chat? Could we go to coffee? And you're able to get a pulse through those one-on-one interactions. Of course, when you're in the corporate settings, everyone knows, the company line. And of course, when to nod your head, when to give the thumbs up. But by committing to those one-on-one interactions, you're going to get the truth from people. You're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. But in saying that, once you actually develop that trust, after they give you the ugly, I would say 8 times out of 10, they're going to be committed to, let's find a way to fix this. Let's find a way to fix this, because whatever happened to me, I don't want it to happen to the next person. The trust is everything. And you gain that trust through one-on-one interactions. Yes, it takes time. It's a slow exercise. I say it's a crawl. But by committing to that, it has paid dividends in more ways than one, my friend. I couldn't even explain. And I'll say that those individuals, they feel empowered, they feel heard, they feel respected, and they feel as if there's a place for them simply because they have a voice.
And on top of that, it sounds like these one-to-one meetings truly provide more of the blueprint or the roadmap for how your company can better support people in the future, which in turn will increase employee happiness, increase employee retention, make it a lot harder for a headhunter like me to come in and poach someone away from a company when they're like, hey, not only am I taken care of financially, but I have a team who actually supports me. I actually enjoy going to work every day. And it's just an opportunity that I don't want to walk away from. Sometimes we hear that from companies who are really at the top of the game with the way they treat their employees. And it's almost like they've built a moat around their company because of how well they treat their people. And I think, interestingly enough, I was talking with a principal over at Skyline Construction the other day, and they're more of a West Coast-based company, but they're expanding. Okay. And long story short, they have the principal was directly working on a diversity supplier initiative within the company. He was pretty much spearheading it. And I thought something was really interesting. What he said in particular was that it's actually companies are looking for people with diverse staff backgrounds, supplier, books of suppliers before they take them on in a project. Like it's being something that is being more of a prerequisite sometimes for different types of clientele who are looking to hire for projects. So not only is it in the best interest of a company to take great care of their people and retain their people, but it's even being that now there are companies who are basing a business decision to do business with a construction company, for example, based on how important is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you said the 7 deadly words. We've always done it this way. You hear it all the time in construction. But this is hearing something like this just goes to show whether you like it or not as a construction leader, it's going to be in your best interest, even for talking about the bottom line of a company, to put more of a focus on this initiative within companies, because you're going to start losing work to people who are more diverse than you, just because some clients make business decisions based on that. So not only are you improving the company culture, but I'm sure that this is actually impacting ways people consider doing business with Shiel Sexton as well.
We've seen it. We've absolutely seen it. There are certain owners, there are certain developers where they have sought out Shiel Sexton because they believe in, our mission to hopefully innovate the way things are being done as it pertains to diversity in construction. So, we've certainly seen that. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone has embraced it. And, for those particular clients, you deal accordingly. But that being said, we are certainly, seeing once again the fruits of our labor and those that do believe in this initiative.
Love it. So I want to dive into Russell's Building Camp. I just think this is such a powerful initiative that you've built. Would you mind just sharing with the audience what Russell's Building Camp is and just give some backstory as to how it's progressed over the years?
Absolutely, I'd be honored to. So Russell's Building Camp, it is a small non-for-profit located in my hometown, Indianapolis, Indiana. And our mission is to introduce young people of all ages from diverse backgrounds to the world of building. We put on workshops, which we call pop-up camps, and we put on workshops for young people. We work with kids as young as 4 years old, all the way, through their teens, even folks that are in their 30s and 40s that pretend to be young. So, that being said, we put on workshops, we pair them with trades partners who perform demonstrations, and we teach them how to really just build. We introduce them to the building trades and the limitless possibilities that come from learning how to use your hands and your mind to create and build, not only for yourself, but for those around you, and how you can actually positively impact your community simply through the discipline that comes in building. I'll say that it's been a life-changing experience. We started in December 2020. We put on a workshop, for 11 young boys. The youngest was 5 years old. The oldest was 11 years old. And we introduced them to the common hand tools, put together a few, friendly competitions, which they were up for. And the winner could become the heavyweight tool belt champion of the world. Man, I mean, they fell in love with that. And they were asking, man, when's the next time we're going to do this? And before you know it, in the next month, we hosted another camp. And those 11, they invited their friends. So we went from 11 to 27. And in the subsequent months, we found ourselves putting on these pop-up camps, the environment second to none, the volunteers. I mean, the spirit that we feel when we hold these things, man, I mean, it's just incredible. I think the largest singular camp that we had was 67 kids, man. And that was, not just, young kids. We had 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 and up. It's just been incredible. And now all these, camps later, now we've held 22 official camps. And, all this time later, we have, several kids that have went on to work for our industry partners. We have a couple in internships right now. We have a couple on college campuses. And I mean, the impact has just been absolutely far beyond my wildest dreams. It's galvanized me, and I believe our team in every way, and we're just hungry for more, in all honesty.
This is so huge. And it really resonates with what I understand is a common path to helping introduce people to wanting to be in construction. Because it's interesting. If you listen back to the podcast I posted, if you have conversations with people in the construction industry, their story almost always starts with, I had a family member who was in the business. I was working in the business from such a young age. I was introduced to construction when I was 10. And what you're doing is you're helping breed a culture of understanding the value of the construction industry for people who wouldn't have otherwise had that. And I'm just thinking, like, first of all, Russell's Building Camp is such a powerful initiative. If you could keep going with this, I mean, kudos to you. The industry is going to be eternally grateful. But we need more Russell's Building Camps in society to show people why construction is such a cool thing to be in at the end of the day, to break people's stigma about the construction industry and really show them what's possible from a young age to help indoctrinate them into the industry. And I think what you're doing for that specific reason and also for so many others it's such a powerful initiative. So cheers to that.
Hey, thanks, brother. I mean, and you mentioned the stigma. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Fighting to break that stigma and, create just a healthy outlet for them to be exposed to the industry and all the things that come with it that are positive. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, this is in large part a generational industry. And by fighting those the stigmas that are associated, hopefully we can create a generational interest into this industry for all people.
Huge impact. Really respect what you're doing.
Thank you.
Of course, kind of along the same line, as outside of Russell's Building Camp, right? What do you think some things we could do as an industry to help bring people from diverse backgrounds into construction? And what resources do you think might need to be involved to get this done? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not as complicated as it seems. Just get out into their communities. In all honesty, get out into their communities. I think about, Russell's Building Camp, not to beat a dead horse, but, for the most part, 95% of the time, when those kids work with a licensed electrician or a plumber or a mason or whatever other tradesman, that was their first time ever meeting one of those individuals. So honestly, we just have to get out into the industry and meet people where they are. I mean, if you think about it, this is one thing that we say often at Shiel Sexton. If we're out in communities, building for communities, we should look like the communities in which we're building and building for and building hopefully with in the future. So that being said, we just have to find ways, strategic ways to get out into the industry. I mean, if you're building across the street from a park and if you see, I don't know, 15 kids playing basketball or playing soccer or whatever other sport in the park, I mean, why not invite them over and show them, a few of the controls on your skid steer or what have you? I mean, there's so many ways that we can just approach people on a human level. It doesn't take, $1 million budget. It doesn't take, this super intricate, sophisticated outreach approach. I mean, sometimes, to be honest, we're too stiff. We just have to find ways to just naturally approach people the way we approach people and just show them the cool things that we do and what we love about our jobs and how they allow us to just make a great living for ourselves and our families. I mean, honestly, if we just approach people on a human level, we'll see. I mean, it'll make a difference.
Most definitely. It's something that really struck a chord with me in my conversation with Aaron Witt the other day. I think people in the construction industry just need to reinvigorate or build a new belief that the construction industry is a cool place to be at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yep.
Aaron brought up the fact that if you look at a company's LinkedIn page, 9 out of 10 times, it's like, Happy St. Patrick's Day, like just talking about things that are nothing related to construction. You got to scroll down a couple pages just to find something that talks about construction. But in reality, like the impact it has on people within the company and people outside of the industry to see a company spotlighting them and the work they do and taking a picture in the trenches and really showcasing how cool it is what they do. It's a belief, I believe, that needs to really start shifting. Is like, this is a damn cool industry to be in. There's so many things to be proud of. And we need to start showcasing that more in the environment, on social media, everywhere we can to keep getting the message out there.
Man, that's powerful. And I'm going to say this exactly. Like, honestly, last week, I'm watching a guy caulk glass. And I'm just watching him caulk glass. And he was so freaking skilled, man, to where I literally pulled out my phone and I just started taking video. And I found myself actually watching that video a couple of days later of this guy just caulking glass. To some, he's just caulking glass. No, he was so skilled. And even his tricks of the trade, using a razor blade and how he was almost mess free. And I mean, his lines were just incredible. And I was just watching the way he was going about that. And that's only one thing amongst thousands that you could see on a job site that will make you say, to your point, man, this industry is incredible. The people, the artists, as I call them, the artists that are involved in this industry, they are incredible. And if you ever get into a conversation with them, they're some of the smartest, most thoughtful people that you'll ever come across that have such an incredible outlook on life. And they don't mind showing you their skills or how they did this or how they did that if you just ask. And those are the things we have to demonstrate. To your point, is that you get to witness art every single day in this industry if you see it that way. And the people that are a part of it are amazing people.
And on top of that, the impact that they drive to the work they do contributes to really the entire infrastructure and country and world that we live in. Like Aaron brought up the fact that a company's slogan on their website for someone that he had known about the dirt world is getting, I forget the name of the city, but let's just say it was San Francisco, getting San Francisco home. Like the fact that they build roads and they help people get from A to B safely. They're literally building the infrastructure for our world. People who are building hospitals, like I think you could find value and really something to be passionate about any type of construction you're doing, because you're building a better community. You're helping better the place you live. And it wouldn't be what it is without the construction industry. So there's just so much to be proud of. And I think the more people start to realize that and the shift is made and it's more shown online, and because online is a lot of what we see today, but also shown in one-to-one interactions like we're talking about earlier, the more we can solve this talent shortage problem. And not only that, have people who are really proud to be a part of this industry.
I mean, exactly, exactly. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I would just say amen to all of that. I mean, we have to be honest with you. There's a different approach than the one that we've been taking, and I believe that if we strike the right balance, and if we find that right message to put out, I mean, we'll see that it'll resonate with people absolutely, because so many don't really truly understand the impact of what it is that we do, and some of the burden is on us to tell them and help them understand.
Hmm. Most definitely. So looking ahead, what are you hoping to achieve with being a part of Shiel Sexton and Russell's Building Camp? What are your aspirations for the coming years?
My aspirations, honestly, I'm humbled by what I've been able to accomplish. But here's the thing, man. I realize this: until there are more individuals just like me and better than me, and you understand what I'm saying. Not to say that there is no one better than me, but I always look at things as far as same way that what my mentors instilled in me. Wherever you go, if you're not leaving a legacy for someone coming after you to go even further than you, then you're really not succeeding. And so for me, I've been able to experience so much. I've been fortunate enough to experience great successes, and I'm still looking forward in my career, but I'm hoping to leave an impact, and not just me, but Shiel Sexton, we're hoping to leave an impact to where it's not just us, a big fish in a small pond, or Adrian, big fish in a small pond. I want to leave a legacy and an impact to where I can look at, a kid or a young person, a young professional that comes after me, and one day I'm knocking on their door saying, "Hey, can I get a job?" Or you get what I'm saying? I mean, I joke with kids and I say that, but I mean, that's what I want. I want folks of every background, whether it be an individual, whether it be an organization, for them to be able to dream and dare to dream to actually be great in this industry. That's what I want. It's for everyone to have a fair opportunity to just be great, honestly.
Such amazing work you're doing, man. Such amazing work.
Thank you.
So kind of as we start capping things off here, do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives, whether it be with Shiel Sexton or Russell's Building Camp, that you'd like to highlight?
Honestly, at Shiel Sexton, I'll say that, we have, a great thing going where we've identified a couple of, diverse general contracting, construction management firms that, we've developed great relationships with them. And I'm looking forward. I can't speak about it now, but, we've been able to do something that's a bit trickier, and that's actually introducing them to one another. Although they may see, themselves as competitors, we've been able to, introduce them to one another, and they're having great dialogue. And we're hoping that we can all work in concert to actually go after, bigger and better things together. And I'm just super excited about that. I mean, I just think that the horizon is just, I mean, I can't even imagine where it could take us. And we're all excited for that. So, I mean, that's something I'm looking forward to. As far as Russell's Building Camp, I mean, I'm looking forward to, being able to do things just like you and I are doing now, really get the good news, as I call it, get that out, share, the message that, we can make an impact, we can do it together. And, I'm looking to, continue to not just limit myself to Indianapolis, Indiana, but to get out across this country and work collaboratively with others that are, in this space and that are working to innovate within this industry to create, exposure and opportunities for the underrepresented. I want to share lessons learned. I want to learn from others, and I want to really collaborate to really advance this mission, not just for Russell's Building Camp, for the many others that are doing the good work as well. And things like this, Matt, I mean, I thank you because it provides that opportunity. So I'm in your debt for sure.
No, the industry's in your debt in many ways, just because what you're doing is really paving the way for a mentality shift. And the more people we have like you in the industry, the better off the industry will be at the end of the day. So I just want to obviously, flip that back on you and say thank you for being on the show. If we, like we talked about earlier, if we just impact one person with this podcast, that's an absolute win.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I just believe your story is so powerful, where you've come from, trials and tribulations, keeping that mentality, giving that third or whatever position it was a chance to actually change your career. So what advice would you give to a young professional in the construction industry who wants to be in your shoes someday?
I would say that this is a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. And I would say you have to temper your expectations. That being said, I mean, no different. You and I, we spoke about our days in sports. For me, my days going back to football. I mean, one, you have to understand that there are days that are absolutely going to suck without question. You're going to have challenges. You're going to suffer hardships. You are going to, have pitfalls. But that being said, as long as you can just stay focused on the task at hand, and if you commit to bettering yourself every day, if you commit to finding a mentor, I mean, that's huge. Identifying a mentor, someone that you can draw from. That doesn't always mean it's someone older than you. In some cases, you might have a mentor that's your same age, even younger, because I mean, that anyone can instill in anyone. But if you commit to improving every single day, and if you keep a healthy outlook, at some point you will find yourself in the spaces that you dream of. At some point you will find yourself actually achieving the success that you aspire to. But you have to understand you're not going to get there overnight. It does require patience. It absolutely requires patience. And yes, times it's going to suck, but the reward, as far as the things that you'll experience, the people that you'll meet, the rooms that you'll get into, things that you'll learn, I mean, it's second to none. And I would say this industry is so rewarding. And I understand it now better than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Had to suffer to get there, but I'm here now, and I can only fathom what I'll experience moving forward. Took time.
I think this life is such a beautiful thing in many ways from my perspective. It's like J. Cole said it in the song, there's beauty in the struggle. And it's like,
I like
also,
that. I like that.
Mike Truelove also came on my podcast, and he talked about how embracing the boring things, maybe earlier in your career, it's hindsight 2020, right? You're looking at it right now, you say, hey, doing all this work might be boring, or it might be a challenge, or it might be a struggle. But then looking back 10 years later, once you've built these profound skill sets that have helped you advance in your career, you realize there was beauty in the struggle. It was all for a purpose. And as long as you keep building and you keep investing in yourself and you keep finding, like you said, mentors to help you level up, this future, or this construction industry, has such a bright future for those who want to be a part of it and who want to grow, who want to succeed. So I really appreciate you coming on so we can spotlight your career story and really how you developed over the years, and how it went from not loving the industry to falling in love with the industry and spreading the good word, as you put it, to other people out there. It's just so powerful. So Adrian, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I mean, you're doing an amazing thing as well. So I appreciate the invitation. This was a great dialogue, and I can't wait for what's next. So thank you so much, my friend.